Imagine standing before a massive stone building, hidden in the hills of West Virginia. Its windows dark like hollow eyes watching every move you make. This is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. A place built to heal broken minds, but remembered for breaking human souls. The walls still breathe with pain, and the silence feels heavy, as if it is waiting for someone to scream again. This asylum was once filled far beyond its limits, turning hope into horror as patients were locked away not for treatment, but for convenience. Men, women, and even children were chained, starved, beaten, and forgotten, all under the excuse of medical care. Inside these cold corridors, patients suffered unimaginable cruelty. People were subjected to brutal treatments like ice baths, electroshock therapy, and isolation rooms where sunlight never reached. Some were imprisoned for life simply for being poor, different, or unwanted by society. Their cries echoed through these halls day and night, slowly sinking into the stone walls. Over time, pain turned into rage, and rage turned into something darker. Many patients died without names, buried without prayers, leaving behind restless energy that never found peace. Visitors today report footsteps following them when no one is there, doors slamming shut on their own, and whispers calling their names from empty rooms. Shadows move where light should be still, and sudden cold chills grip the body as if unseen hands are brushing past. Paranormal investigators from around the world consider this asylum a favorite hunting ground, because activity here is constant and aggressive. Spirits are not shy. They touch, they push, they breathe into ears, and sometimes they scream. Some investigators claim these are not just lost souls but angry spirits, trapped in the moment of their suffering, replaying their trauma again and again. There are rooms where equipment malfunctions instantly, cameras drain without explanation, and voices are captured begging for help or demanding silence. The energy feels suffocating, as if the building itself refuses to let anyone leave unchanged. People enter curious, but they leave shaken, carrying a fear they cannot explain. This is not just a haunted hospital, it is a place where madness, cruelty, and death fuse together, creating something alive in the darkness, something that watches, waits, and remembers every soul that ever suffered within its walls. Imagine a place designed for healing that slowly transformed into a cage of human suffering, where overcrowding did not just steal comfort, but erased dignity itself. At the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, the number of patients kept rising while space, care, and humanity kept shrinking. The building was meant to hold a limited number of people. Yet year after year, more bodies were forced inside its stone walls. Rooms built for a few beds were crammed with dozens of patients, sleeping on cold floors, wooden benches, or standing for hours because there was no place left to rest. The air became thick with sweat, illness, and despair, and the smell of decay never truly left. People were packed so tightly that privacy no longer existed, and sanity slowly dissolved in the noise of constant crying, shouting, and madness. As overcrowding grew worse, care turned into cruelty. Doctors and staff could no longer control the number of patients, so they stopped trying to understand them as humans. Instead, they saw them as problems to be locked away. Food was scarce and often rotten, leading to starvation and disease spreading rapidly through the asylum. Tuberculosis, infections, and untreated injuries claimed lives silently in the night. Patients who became weak were ignored, left to die where they lay, their bodies sometimes undiscovered for hours or even days. Those who screamed for help were punished, tied to beds, locked in isolation cells, or beaten into silence. The worst horror was that many of these people were not even mentally ill. Some were brought here for being poor, for having disabilities, for being unwanted by their families, or simply for being different. Once inside, escape was nearly impossible. Overcrowding ensured that names were forgotten and identities erased. Patients became numbers, shadows moving through endless hallways, waiting for a kindness that never came. The constant pressure of bodies pressed together, the lack of sunlight, and the never-ending noise slowly crushed their minds. Madness became contagious, spreading from one soul to another like a dark infection. As the years passed, the suffering soaked into the walls. Every scream, every whispered prayer, every final breath seemed to stain the stone itself. The spirits of those who died angry and afraid had no peace, because their deaths were not gentle, nor their lives remembered. Overcrowding trapped them not only in life, but in death as well. Today, investigators believe that this intense concentration of pain created aggressive spiritual energy. People report feeling watched the moment they step inside, as if unseen eyes are counting them, just as staff once counted patients. In certain rooms, visitors suddenly feel pressure on their chest, struggling to breathe, as if they are reliving the suffocation patients felt when dozens were forced into a single space. Whispers echo from empty corners, voices overlapping, begging for space, begging to be seen. Some claim to hear arguments between spirits, as if the dead are still fighting over territory they were denied in life. Cold spots appear suddenly, especially where patients were piled together, their bodies touching even in death. Paranormal investigators often say the spirits here are restless and aggressive, because overcrowding robbed them of individuality. They were never allowed to be alone, never allowed peace, and now their energy lashes out at the living. Equipment malfunctions violently, EMF meters spike without warning, and shadow figures appear clustered together, never alone, always moving as a group. It feels as though the spirits cannot separate themselves. Trapped forever in the same suffocating closeness they endured while alive. Some visitors leave with scratches, unexplained bruises, or sudden waves of panic, as if the asylum is forcing them to experience a fragment of its past. Others report hearing their names whispered repeatedly, a chilling reminder of how patients longed for someone to remember who they were. The curiosity that brings people here slowly turns into fear as they realize this place does not want to be observed. It wants to be felt. The asylum does not forget overcrowding, because overcrowding is what gave it life, turning human misery into a presence that still breathes, still moves, and still presses in from all sides, as if there is never enough room for the living or the dead. Inside the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, treatment was a word that disguised terror, because what patients endured in the name of medicine was often worse than the illnesses they were accused of having. Doctors believed fear and pain could control the mind, and so they turned suffering into a routine. Ice, cold baths were used not to heal, but to shock obedience into broken bodies. Patients were submerged in freezing water until their teeth shattered with violent shaking, their lips turning blue as their screams echoed through tiled rooms. Some fainted from the cold and never woke up, their deaths recorded as unfortunate accidents, while the next patient was dragged forward without hesitation. Electroshock therapy was administered without mercy or understanding. Patients were strapped down as electricity tore through their bodies, forcing muscles to twist unnaturally, bones sometimes cracking under the pressure. The smell of burning skin filled the air, mixing with the scent of fear. Many were given these treatments repeatedly, even when they showed no signs of illness, because doctors believed pain erased rebellion. Isolation rooms became tombs for the living. These tiny, dark cells held patients alone for days or weeks, surrounded by absolute silence broken only by their own breathing and thoughts. In this darkness, minds shattered completely, and some patients clawed at the walls until their fingers bled, desperate to feel something real. As time passed, these cruel practices drained not only the bodies but the souls of those trapped inside. Spirits were slowly broken, and when death finally came, it was not peaceful. Many died during treatments, others shortly after, their bodies too weak to recover. Their final emotions were terror, confusion, and anger, emotions so intense they refused to fade. Paranormal investigators believe these emotions became imprinted into the asylum, replaying endlessly like a cursed memory. Today, when people enter treatment rooms, they often feel sudden nausea, dizziness, or an overwhelming sense of panic, as if the air itself remembers the suffering. Voices are said to whisper from the corners of these rooms, pleading for mercy or crying out in pain. Some recordings capture faint sobbing, the sound of straps tightening, or a sharp electric crack followed by silence. Visitors report feeling invisible hands gripping their wrists or ankles, as if unseen patients are begging them to understand what they endured. In isolation cells, the fear becomes heavier. People feel watched even when they are alone, sensing a presence standing just behind them, breathing slowly, waiting. The spirits here are not calm or curious, they are restless and aggressive. They do not want comfort, they want acknowledgement. They repeat their suffering by forcing the living to feel fragments of it. Shadows appear strapped to walls, convulsing briefly before vanishing. Cold surges through rooms suddenly, especially near old treatment equipment, as if death itself is passing by. Some investigators claim that the spirits follow them out of the rooms, clinging to their energy, unwilling to be forgotten again. Curiosity draws people into the asylum, but fear teaches them the truth. This place does not share its history gently. It presses memories into the minds of visitors, blurring the line between past and present. The spirits seem to whisper warnings, as if asking why anyone would ever trust these halls again. The asylum is alive with echoes of cruelty, and every treatment room remains a stage where pain, terror, and restless souls continue their endless experiment on anyone brave enough to step inside. Death inside the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was never gentle, and because it came wrapped in fear, neglect, and loneliness, it did not know how to leave. Many patients did not die peacefully in beds surrounded by care, they died on cold floors, in isolation cells, during brutal treatments, or quietly in overcrowded rooms where no one noticed their final breath. Some passed away calling for help that never arrived, others died confused, not even knowing why they were imprisoned. Their last moments were filled with terror, anger, and betrayal, and those emotions clung to the asylum long after their bodies were removed. When a human life ends without dignity, something breaks in a way that cannot be buried. The spirits born from such deaths are not calm or wandering. They are restless and aggressive, trapped between what they were promised and what they received. Investigators believe that many souls inside the asylum never realized they were dead. They continue to relive their final moments, pacing hallways, crying out in the dark, and reacting violently when they sense the living. This is why visitors often feel sudden waves of rage, sadness, or panic without explanation, as if emotions are being forced into them from the air itself. Rooms where deaths were frequent feel heavy, almost suffocating. People describe pressure on their chest, difficulty breathing, and an overwhelming urge to escape. It mirrors how patients felt as life slipped away, surrounded by stone walls that refused to listen. Whispers echo from corners, where bodies once lay unattended, voices repeating fragments of pain, broken sentences, or desperate questions. Some spirits are said to scream, not audibly, but directly into the mind, causing headaches, nausea, and sudden fear that feels personal and targeted. The aggression of these spirits is what separates this asylum from ordinary haunted places. Visitors report being shoved, scratched, or having their clothes pulled. Paranormal teams capture voices that grow angry when questions are asked, responding with sharp tones or commands to leave. Shadows move quickly, not hiding but charging across rooms, as if replaying moments of panic and escape that never succeeded. These spirits are not curious about the living. They are furious that the living can walk freely where they once suffered endlessly. Curiosity draws people deeper into the building, but the deeper they go, the more the atmosphere changes. Hallways feel crowded, even when empty, as if invisible figures are pressed close on all sides. Some investigators claim to hear coughing, choking, or the sound of bodies dragging across the floor late at night. These are believed to be echoes of dying patients who were too weak to stand, too broken to call out, and too forgotten to be saved. Their energy lingers in clusters, just as they lived and died crowded together. Aggressive spirits often attach themselves to individuals who show fear or empathy. Visitors who pause too long in certain rooms report feeling followed, sensing a presence directly behind them, even after leaving the building. Some carry nightmares home, dreaming of locked doors, screaming patients, and hands reaching out from the dark. These spirits seem desperate to be remembered, but their desperation manifests as anger, not comfort. They do not want sympathy. They want acknowledgement of the injustice they endured. The asylum feels less like a building and more like a wound that never healed. Every death added another layer of unrest, another voice to the endless chorus trapped within the walls. The living enter seeking stories, but the dead are still telling theirs, using fear as their language. In this place, death did not bring peace. It multiplied suffering, turning lost souls into guardians of pain, who refuse to fade, who refuse to forgive, and who continue to exist in the darkness, watching, waiting, and reacting violently to any reminder that life outside these walls continued while theirs was taken away. For paranormal investigators, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is not just a location, it is an obsession. A place whispered about with equal parts excitement and dread, because activity here is not rare, not subtle, and never gentle. Teams from around the world travel to this building knowing that something will happen, because silence here never lasts. The moment investigators step inside, equipment begins to react, as if the building itself senses their presence. EMF meters spike violently without warning, batteries drain in minutes, and cameras malfunction even when fully charged. It feels as though the spirits are aware they are being watched and studied, and they do not like it. Fear does not arrive suddenly, it creeps in slowly, wrapped in curiosity. Long hallways seem endless, and the sound of footsteps echoes even when no one is moving. Investigators often report hearing their names, called clearly from dark corners, voices sounding close, intimate, and urgent. When they respond, the air turns cold, heavy, almost angry. This asylum is considered one of the most active paranormal locations because the spirits do not hide. They interact. They interrupt. They react to questions with knocks, whispers, and sudden movements that feel deliberate. Many investigators believe the spirits here have learned how to communicate through repeated investigations. When questions are asked, responses come quickly. A single knock for yes, two for no. Lights flicker on command. Doors creak open slowly, not from wind, but as if pushed by unseen hands. Shadow figures appear frequently, not just in peripheral vision, but directly in front of cameras, forming human, like shapes that pause before disappearing. These encounters leave even experienced investigators shaken because the energy feels intelligent, focused, and emotionally charged. What makes this asylum especially terrifying is the aggressive nature of the activity. Unlike playful or curious hauntings, spirits here often invade personal space. Investigators report feeling hands brush against their arms, fingers tugging at clothing, or pressure against their backs, as if someone is standing inches away. Some are suddenly pushed or touched hard enough to leave marks. Scratches appear on skin, sometimes forming patterns that cannot be explained. These encounters feel intentional, as though the spirits are reminding visitors that this is their territory. Curiosity pushes investigators deeper into the building, but the deeper they go, the darker the atmosphere becomes. Certain rooms feel crowded despite being empty, filled with an invisible presence that presses in from all sides. EVP sessions capture voices overlapping, speaking over each other in desperation, anger, or confusion. Some voices beg investigators to stay, while others command them to leave immediately. The emotional contrast is disturbing, suggesting multiple spirits with different memories and intentions, all trapped together in the same space. Night investigations are the most intense. As darkness falls, the asylum seems to awaken. Sounds increase, footsteps multiply, and distant screams are sometimes reported, faint but unmistakable. Investigators describe the feeling of being watched constantly, not by one presence but by many. It feels like standing in front of an unseen audience, silent yet aware. Thermal cameras capture cold human, shaped figures moving through hallways, stopping near investigators, lingering before fading away. The reason investigators keep returning is because evidence here is undeniable. Photos reveal faces in windows where no one stands. Audio recordings capture full sentences, not whispers. Objects move on their own, sometimes violently. Chairs slide across rooms, doors slam shut, and personal items disappear only to reappear in impossible places. These events happen repeatedly, not once, not twice, but almost every night, reinforcing the asylum's reputation as a paranormal hotspot. Yet with every visit, fear deepens. Investigators often leave exhausted, emotionally drained, as if something has fed on their energy. Some experience nightmares for weeks, dreaming of patients staring silently, eyes filled with accusation. Others report feeling followed long after leaving the building, sensing a presence in their homes. Hearing faint whispers late at night. It is believed that some spirits become attached, unwilling, to let go of those who acknowledge their existence. This is why the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum remains a favorite among paranormal investigators. It offers proof, interaction, and danger all at once. The spirits here are not myths or shadows of imagination. They behave as though they are still alive, still suffering, still aware. Curiosity draws people in, but fear teaches them respect. Because in this place the dead do not rest quietly. They observe, they remember. And they respond to anyone who dares to step into their world, where every question feels like an invitation, and every answer comes wrapped in cold breath, unseen hands, and the heavy awareness that something ancient and angry is standing very close, listening carefully, and deciding how to make itself known. In the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, fear does not stay at the edge of imagination. It becomes physical, intimate, and impossible to ignore. Visitors often enter expecting distant sounds or subtle shadows, but what they experience instead is contact, as if the spirits here refuse to remain unseen. People report feeling sudden taps on their shoulders, fingers brushing their arms, or a firm grip around the wrist that lasts just long enough to freeze the blood. These touches feel deliberate, not accidental, as though something unseen is testing boundaries, reminding the living that they are not alone in these halls. Voices are one of the most disturbing elements of this place, because they do not sound faint or far away. Whispers rise clearly from empty rooms, sometimes calling out names, sometimes begging softly, sometimes speaking in harsh, angry tones. Visitors turn expecting to see someone standing behind them, only to face empty space and cold air. Some voices sound confused, repeating questions again and again, while others sound commanding, telling people to leave, to be quiet, to stop watching. These voices create a terrifying sense of unity among the spirits, as if they are all speaking from the same memory of suffering. Shadows move constantly throughout the asylum, but they are not simple flickers of light. Dark human-shaped figures glide along walls, pause in doorways, or stand motionless at the end of corridors before vanishing suddenly. Some appear in groups, clustered tightly together, reflecting how patients once lived and died without space or individuality. These shadows do not feel passive. People report them rushing forward suddenly, causing panic and forcing visitors to stumble backward in fear. The mind knows nothing is physically there, but the body reacts as if facing real danger. The intense fear people feel here is not just emotional, it feels forced upon them. Visitors experience sudden racing hearts, dizziness, nausea, and an overwhelming urge to escape, even when nothing visible is happening. Paranormal researchers believe this fear is a direct transmission of emotion from the spirits, fragments of terror preserved from their final moments. It feels as if the asylum pushes these emotions into anyone who enters, making them feel what patients once felt when locked behind doors they could never open. Physical contact often escalates as curiosity deepens. People who linger too long in certain rooms report scratches appearing on their skin, sometimes in straight lines, sometimes forming strange patterns. Others feel sudden pressure on their chest, as if someone is sitting on them, holding them down, recreating moments of restraint and helplessness. These encounters leave no doubt that something here is capable of interacting with the living world in ways that are deeply unsettling. Voices captured on recordings often overlap, multiple spirits speaking at once, creating a chaotic blend of whispers, cries, and angry responses. Some recordings capture coughing, sobbing, or the sound of someone pacing restlessly. These sounds are not random, they seem tied to specific locations where patients suffered most. Visitors standing in these areas feel watched intensely, as if unseen eyes are locked onto them, judging their presence. The unity among these spirits is what makes the asylum feel alive. They do not act as isolated entities. They respond together, creating an atmosphere that feels organized and aware. Shadows appear where voices are heard. Touch follows moments of silence. Fear rises suddenly when questions are asked. It feels as though the spirits are communicating with each other, reacting collectively to the intrusion of the living. This unity makes the fear stronger, because it suggests intelligence rather than chaos. Curiosity drives people forward despite the fear. Every sound, every touch, every shadow feels like a clue, a piece of a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. But the asylum does not reveal its secrets gently. It demands emotional payment. Visitors often leave feeling drained, shaken, and silent, struggling to explain what they felt. Some say the fear follows them out, lingering in their thoughts, returning in dreams filled with dark corridors and whispering voices. The spirits here do not seek peace. They seek recognition. Their contact is not comfort, their voices not guidance, their shadows not illusions. They are reminders of pain shared, suffering multiplied, and fear preserved. In this place, the boundary between curiosity and terror disappears, and the living are forced to stand inside the same darkness that once surrounded the forgotten, feeling hands they cannot see, hearing voices with no mouths, watching shadows that move with purpose, while the asylum breathes around them, alive with memories that refuse to fade. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum still stands today, not as a place of healing, but as a living record of what happens when humanity abandons compassion in the name of control. Its stone walls remain unchanged, carrying the weight of thousands of forgotten lives, each brick layered with suffering, injustice, and silence. History did not end when the doors closed, it simply stopped pretending to listen. The spirits that remain are not legends created by fear, they are echoes of real people who lived, suffered, and died here, denied dignity even in death. To walk these halls is to step into unfinished history, where pain was never acknowledged and justice never arrived. The asylum does not ask to be feared, it demands to be remembered. Because places like this do not become haunted by accident, they become haunted when the living fail the helpless, and the dead are left with nothing but their voices, their anger, and the endless task of reminding the world of a truth carved permanently into stone and shadow.